49ers Ultimate Report. This is John J., your 49ers reporter, opinionist, analyst, and die-hard fan. It is Thursday. You know what time it is. You know what it is. There's no more introductions needed. We're going to start the show in just a quick moment. I want to shout out all of my subscribers. How are you guys doing? Leave your comments in the chat. Ask your questions because it is Thursday. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the channel. This is the 49ers Ultimate Report. I am John J. You are in a special treat if you're here for the first time. I got a great collaboration called the Candlestick Point Report. It is a podcast. It happens every Thursday. And let me just bring in my co-host. What is up, Shifty?
Hey, how we doing, John? Another Thursday, only a couple days away from game day, and couldn't be more excited, man. It's going to be a good time.
Yep, and everyone already knows, I updated one of my playlists, and one of the playlists is our podcast, and I did not know that this is number 15 since we started this after the end of the season, so it's been going strong. It's been very successful. It's going to continue to grow. And of course, there'll be more other podcasts, not just with Shifty, but other people as we grow this network. So, Shifty, before we start the show, I wanted to start off with something a little bit different. How are you doing, man?
Oh, I'm good, dude. I'm good. Busy. Life's busy, but I've been able to be a little bit more active with the channel and stuff, so that's really cool. And I just love streaming the games. I love analyzing the game, talking about it with yourself and other faithful. And yeah, life's good, man. I can't complain. How about you?
Yeah, like for me, a lot of people, know this. I always say, I'm doing good. I'm grinding about life. And the reason why I want to start, the show like this a little bit different than how we usually do is because I want to start to have some normal conversations before we start the show and just talk being human, being normal people for a little bit and remind everyone about what we do is just one part of our lives. So the reason why I wanted to start off how are you doing is that my life is very simple. I don't live a very extraordinary fun life. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy talking football. So I wanted to ask Shifty this question before we talk about any football 49er stuff as well. Like you do your podcast, your YouTube channel. Of course, I see the Warriors the Warrior jersey over there. We're not gonna talk about the little Warriors incident, but I wanted this to be a bit of a human element. It's like why do you love to do talking about the Niners? Why do you love to do
that? That's a really good question. Honestly, I've always been super passionate about the game, and like my earliest memories, just in life, are watching Monday Night Football. My dad was there. We were watching the game, and I think back, I was like 3 or 4 years old, but I just think like even just the game of football, but not only football, but sports is just, to me, here's how I think of it. And it's like very cheesy, but a lot of people, they love their movies, they love their TV shows and that kind of thing. And for me, I always thought sports was like, in a way, I think about it almost like a TV show in terms of like, it's the people who are the best at what they do, but there's no script really. Like you don't know what's going to happen. Like no one is, it comes down to like the players on the field, and it comes down to people who put in a lot of hard work. And essentially, yeah, it's the people who are just the best in the world at what they do. For me, I've just always loved the game of football because I think it's like you have to be incredibly smart to play football. There's like so much stuff going on. You have to be incredibly athletic, like powerful, strong. And then, it's just, I don't know, there's something about it that I always just related to. And I think probably it comes back to just like as a child, like growing up and watching it. And I was just, ever since then, I was really passionate. And because I am passionate about it, ultimately it leads me to have like a lot of opinions and thoughts on it. And I think like friends of mine and family kind of got sick of me talking to them about it. So they were like, why don't you just go out and, and I was like, yeah, why not? And see what happens. So that's kind of why I did the channel, because I think people were fed up with me just talking their ear off about 49ers. So
yeah, that was the same way how I did. Stop talking because 2020, the world stopped. I'm not gonna get into details about it, but that's what I used to always do, and why I did what I did. I want to shout out to Niner Gang Wolfcast. How are you doing? Uh, this guy, I discovered him from this guy Bryant. So I want to say shout out to Brian. He says, "What's up to us? What's up, faithful, etc." So one thing that I'm not sure if you're a big fan of, but I'm a huge boxing fan. I love boxing. Some people who don't understand it, oh, they're two people hitting each other. How is that a sport? It's an art. You have to understand what boxing is. Boxing is life for me. Why? Because in life you get punched, you get knocked out, you get knocked down. So when you get knocked out, in life, do you stay on the canvas, or do you get back up and continue to take the punches? The best people in life, and that's why I always recommend someone to watch a quality boxing fight just one time in their life, and you understand it's like superhuman. It's the closest thing for people who are big superhero fans, just like you talked about. And boxing will always teach you the toughness in life. I think even you can tell girls that, boys that, boys and girls, if you're a parent, boxing is a good way. That's how I grew up. And sports was always something, and it was a great script, just like you talked about. It is a script that is written the second something happens. And we know this very well. And one example is our Golden State Warriors. Who would have thought that we would trade Monte Ellis? I'm going back to history. And we were all angry at the new owners. We're trading our best player, our only scorer. And then you saw a new script written. No more being at the bottom of the NBA. Now we're at the top of the NBA. Who ever thought an idea would basically, like, let's take away our best athlete, and we wrote a new script. Vast didn't know what would happen. The same thing with the 49ers. And football is a good metaphor, just like any sport. It's the ultimate drama show. And I'm going back to boxing. There was a boxer from 2014 to 2017 who ran the middleweight division. Triple G, also known as Gennady Golovkin. For those, if you're a really, really big 49er, a big boxing fan. And he said, I am the best drama show. You do not know when the knockout's going to happen. You don't even know if I'm going to go the distance. So that's what sports is to me. That's what football is to me. And that's why I love to do this. Because a lot of people, when they look at sports, they look at the traditional black and white. Sports is more than black and white. It is the idea that you have in your head. That's why fans have different ways of talking sports. And that's why I wanted to start off the show like this. So if you have any final things you want to say about just talking about, about sports in general, feel free before we start the show.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's always been a case of like growing up. I was always playing sports, not really much football to be honest, but a lot of basketball, soccer, like baseball, things like that. So a lot of times, even though it's not nearly at the same level as what professionals play at, but at least you can kind of like, oh, I know how difficult that is, and that's something that I admire when I see people and athletes do the things that they do, because I'm like, that is not easy. Like in football, some of the throws that people make, some of the catches, all these other things, it's like, wow, like I don't know if people realize how hard that is. These guys just make it look easy. But yeah, I always have like a huge appreciation for sports and people who are amazing at what they do. And yeah, I think it's just a great thing that even people can connect over and bond with about talking sports. And we all have our own opinions too. I think everyone in their own way sees it a little bit differently. There's no one way to see sports. There's no right way or wrong way necessarily. So I think that's a good thing that we can all have our opinions, and then we kind of see how it all plays out.
Yeah. And right here, this is a good quote right here from Niner Gang Wolfcast. Boxing is fire. This is my first love. Probably because it is your job in the ring to do your job. And yeah. And I recommend people who are not boxing fanatics, even if you don't like the sport, there is an art to what they're doing. Okay. The terminology, as I mentioned, I'm going to show you a little bit of my boxing, history. Boxing is called prize fighting. Prize fighting. It's about boxing for the prize. It's not about the champions. And that's why boxing, people can say this. Boxing has its good moments. It also has a lot of bad history, many bad things, but people still watch it. And for people who are big superhero, like I know a lot of fans love, Superman, Batman, I think Wonder Woman, and there are a lot more other heroes. I know the Wolverine, that's another superhero. It is the closest thing. That's why people are very, very fond to professional wrestling. It is a good fictional way to build a character, a storyline, good versus evil, evil versus good, things like that. That's why people are big fans of the combat. And wrestling is a good fictional storytelling. And a lot of the wrestling people are going to kill me for saying this. It's exhibition. Is it a sport? It's an exhibition sport. It's not a sport where there's real consequences, real, situation. It's great stories. That's what professional wrestling is. Boxing is probably the most realistic thing because there's two men, even two women. Women also box now. You don't know the outcome. You don't know the outcome. So I wanted to start off the show by just, being a little bit real, talking about, things like that as well. So feel free to leave your questions and comments. But let's start off. What we always start off is Thursday night. We do the show on Thursday. Thursday night is Thursday night football. The Chicago Bears are playing the Washington Commanders. So I want to get your thoughts on the game. Are you going to watch this game? Are you interested in this game? So are you going to be watching the Thursday night matchup?
Maybe. This game is it's interesting, that's for sure. Now, I think it's fair to say that both of these teams are not great. Even though, look, the Bears did beat the 49ers fair and square. But yeah, I just think that this game is, to me, it might be one of those games that like both teams are like just so bad that it ends up being like a fun game. Like, there was the game a couple of weeks ago. It was Seattle and Detroit. It was like 48-45. Now, I'm not saying that these teams will put up that many points, but maybe it's a bit of a shootout. Maybe you get some exciting plays. Both teams, they do have some good players out there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm not rooting for anyone in particular, but I'm just kind of hoping that I'll tune in and see how the game is going. If it's kind of like a snooze fest, then I'll probably, switch it off and do something else. But you never know. Maybe we'll get a crazy amount of offense and it'll be super exciting. But yeah, it's not the best matchup. I'll put it that way.
That is true. Last Thursday night game, I'm not going to lie. Like I've seen a lot of NFL games. I'm not saying it was one of the worst games, but it was up there as one of the most. And let's just say people fell asleep watching the game because that's how boring it was. Russell Wilson was horrible. He and Matt Ryan had both 3 turnovers, but a team had to win, and the Colts won. So I'm calling it right now because I know I have a few Broncos fans. I collaborated with a wonderful Broncos lady. She was very cool. They're frauds. They're frauds. They're frauds. But this game is one of the most confusing games why the NFL put it on the schedule for Thursday nights. And I know the NFL, they try their best to incorporate, every team to play on Thursday night football. That is one of the things that they do on Thursday night football. They try to incorporate teams so every team has an opportunity to play on Thursday night football. But there are just some games that are not watchable. I do think the Bears are a better team. The Commanders look so awful, like just their coaching, Ron Rivera, I don't think he's having fun anymore coaching. Carson Wentz, there was a lot of hype of him. That defense was considered to be one of the most upcoming defense in the NFL. They have underperformed. Of course, the Commanders outside of football, they got their own personal issues, which I'm not going to even talk about that on this show. But it's a real reminder how some games should not be on Thursday night football. I will not watch this game. I personally do not care about this game. First of all, because the Bears beat us, and I know the Bears are having fun. We beat the Niners. But that's all I have to say about this Thursday night game. Anyway,
Yeah, there's not much to say about it, honestly.
yep. All right, now because we got that out the way, let's talk about last week. Your thoughts on the 49ers victory over the Panthers. Final score was 37-15. This score really does not entail what really happened on the field. I do think the Panthers scored a little bit more than they were supposed to, and I think the 49ers should have had 4 extra points on this game, in my opinion. But I wanted to get your thoughts on this game. Like, what did you see, all around? Were there some good things? Were there some bad things that happened? I know you're going to discuss the injuries as well, but overall, this game, I just want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, well, number one, like the defense just kept doing what it's been doing all season long. The Panthers did get that one touchdown drive, but beyond that, I mean, we pretty much shut them down. I always had a lot of confidence in the defense throughout the course of this game. We really held their running game in check, which was a big thing because we know how much Christian McCaffrey and him running the football is a part of their offense. And then the Panthers do have two pretty good receivers when they have Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. And for the most part, we were able to shut them down. So the defense kept doing its thing. The run defense, again, really impressive. With the pass defense in terms of the pass rush, I did think that we kind of felt the absence of Bosa after, he left the game early. The pressure, like, people say, oh, well, we had 6 sacks. So, I mean, we were getting, pressure. The defensive line played great. And I think they played pretty good. Yeah. But of the 6 sacks, 4 of the sacks were either linebackers or defensive backs. So that means we're blitzing just to help out. And, that's also a result of having a lot of confidence in guys like Mosley, well, not for the rest of the year, but Charvarius Ward, who's been amazing, that we can trust those guys to hold up. And then that allows us to blitz and bring pressure. But defense, great. Offense definitely looked better. It's probably the best that it's looked all season long. There were some moments that weren't great. Like the Debo had a really bad drop. A couple of penalties kind of hurt here and there, but the run game was really solid. Jeff Wilson Jr. over 7 yards a carry, which is wild. But something that I really did like a lot in this game was Garoppolo was willing to throw the ball up for one-on-one matchups. He had the great pass and an even better catch by Tevin Coleman. On the first drive, he threw it, pretty deep to George Kittle, who made a nice catch. Then, we attempted a deep pass to Danny Gray. And even though it was incomplete, it still gives the defenses something to think about too. So I like that he trusts his receivers. And I think we should keep doing that. We see it in all these football games where, when you have a one-on-one matchup, if you're throwing a Debo or Ayuk, you got to like the matchup. Either it's going to be a catch, it's going to be a defensive pass interference, or it's going to be incomplete. Very rarely will it be an interception. So I think we do have to take more shots. So that was positive too. The pass blocking in general was nice. I thought Jimmy sacked twice, but overall I think it held up pretty well. But the special teams was absolute garbage. Like the special teams was really bad again. We had the field goal that got blocked. We gave up 2 huge returns that actually one of those returns set up the touchdown drive. I mean, if you start at midfield, that's, half the yards that you need already right there. So special teams has got to get it together big time, because when we play the Seahawks or when we play the Panthers, we're still probably going to win the game. But when it comes to playoff time, and if we're playing, a team like the Eagles, those kind of miscues can cost us the game. So they got to get that figured out.
Yeah. And I want to say what's up to Crazy Jews in the chat. Thanks for tuning in. This is how I saw it. Like I think that the offensive line in the third quarter really was not doing their job very well. And we're going to talk about one of the offensive line players in just a moment. And I think if Jimmy Garoppolo, and Jimmy did some good throws. I talked about it. I got a few dislikes on a few of my videos this week because, I was giving Jimmy credit. There's still a giant fan base who will never give Jimmy any type of credit. Like, even like I saw, I think they call them memes on Twitter, where I don't know if I should say this because I don't want to divide nobody, but there's a picture of a person, if you're a religious person, people, there's a religious figure. They put the picture, Jimmy Garoppolo's face on the religious. And they said even if he saved the world, cured cancer, did whatever, they will still hate him because I don't know why. So I made it very careful, not to say what, because again, there are certain things that do get people riled up. But the facts remain is that you got to give Jimmy credit. If you're someone who knows football, understands football, and maybe I'm just a coach because I was a coach, I was an athlete, I grew up playing sports. So the athlete and coach in me saying like, what's wrong with people? Are fans basically those who just turn the TV on, watch the game, and and I don't want to be kind of rude, do they go outside? But if you've played sports, you understand it. Even when you watch NFL Network, you have all these Super Bowl, winners, champions, former MVPs, Hall of Famers, and they say the same thing. Jimmy's not bad, but he will never elevate a team. I think that's the best way to describe Jimmy Garoppolo. He's good enough to lead the 49ers in the offensive system, but at the same time, will he take over a game, say like the 49ers are down 14 points, and take some 2 straight drives going down the field, throwing the ball down the field, getting the team back in the game? He's not going to do that, but we do have to give him credit where credit is due. But the offensive line was a problem. Special team was a problem. And Robbie Gould takes forever to kick the football. Slowly, like ball is snapped up, he runs up to it slow. And I'm not going to say Robbie Gould did not. No, you're a kicker. And I was watching a bunch of kickers on the all 22. They take 2 slow steps and then the third one they knock it in. Robbie Gould takes 3 short steps and then slowly knocks it in. You're giving the players enough time to block you when you take that much time. And again, it's not an opinion, it is facts. So, and then you talked about the special teams. And Robbie Gould is your kicker. I know you're trying to tackle the player, but you're the kicker. And then, the runner slammed into you and you hurt the upper part of your leg. So you have to be really careful how you play. And the special teams was an F. The offensive line was a D. It wasn't as bad. Once Brunskill came in, the offense, so the offensive line did much better. They protected Jimmy, and we were able to do what we always did. The run game was always a positive. 120 yards by Jeff Wilson Jr. So we just have to establish the run to open up the pass, and that's how we win the football games. That's my thoughts about it. Any other thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, with that, my one concern, I mean, aside from the injuries, like my one concern about the team, that's like a major concern is the special teams. And what's kind of frustrating me a little bit is that seemingly in the offseason, we spent all these money on these guys who would make our special teams maybe really good. George Odom, Oren Burks, Ray McLeod. We bring in a new coordinator. And honestly, I mean, if we had to be real, like the special teams is worse than last year. It's worse than last year, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know about you, John, but like for me, when I see Ray McLeod field a punt or return a kickoff, I'm just like, just please don't fumble it. Just don't fumble the ball. And then whenever we kick off the ball, and then I'm like, if we can tackle him around the 25, I'll be happy, But I just kind of lost like a lot of confidence in the special teams. And now with field goals too, even if Robbie Gould can play, on Sunday, I'm going to be like holding my, fingers crossed, holding my breath that he'll just get the kick up without it getting blocked. So, there's definitely things to work on. I wouldn't be shocked if during the bye week, depending on how the special teams look these next few games, but maybe we bring someone in with regards to like an assistant special teams court or something just to get it figured out. Because, if we look at last year, just ask the Green Bay Packers how important special teams is. That's why we beat them in Green Bay, because the punt block. Now, that's like to me, that's probably one of the worst ways that you can lose is if it's by a special teams play. Mm-hmm. We got to get it figured out.
Yeah. Shout out to Crazy Juice. He said D- for special teams. My boy Fialua is in the building. What's up, man? Shout out to one of my new mods. I got to say, I am happy with the way Banks is playing. He's been really good. Hope he can play this Sunday. And speaking of that comment, let's talk about something that was announced yesterday. There's a video that I posted, but let's talk about these injuries. Today we're talking about a lot about the injuries. So Panthers game, injuries. Emmanuel Mosley out for the year. We don't really need to say anything. He's not coming back this season. Aaron Banks yesterday, again, and for whatever the reason, Kyle always waits a day or two to announce bad things. And Aaron Banks, Achilles, and had some tendonitis fluid. And Samson Ebukam, an Achilles. And he was talking about the turf. I did not know. And be completely honest, the Panthers, I thought they were playing on natural grass. I did not know they were playing on turf. So when you look at these injuries, it just won't stop. We lost a player for the year on this game alone. We had 2 players that are dealing with some tendonitis, Achilles. Achilles is not something you bounce back immediately. So what are your thoughts about this? This is just becoming insane now.
Yeah, it's just really frustrating, man. Like I think, we have to give credit where it's due. There's definitely times and moments where I've criticized John Lynch and Adam Peters and the scouting for certain things, but the fact that we've lost our starting quarterback, our starting running back, our starting left tackle, we didn't have our star tight end for a few games. On defense, we've missed we might even be out with our starting defensive line, but our starting defensive tackles are gone. One of our starting linebackers are gone. Yet we're still winning games. And the team is still, you look at the team on paper and it's still a pretty talented team. So, but it's just frustrating, man, because I know you have to think just how good would this team be at full strength, and I know like every team has injuries. We're not the only team, but it seems like we always get hit harder than most other teams. And the amount of starters that we're missing is just insane. I just really hope that some way, somehow, because once we get through this game in Atlanta, and unfortunately, they have that artificial turf as well. But once we get through this game in Atlanta, most of our games the rest of the season are going to be on natural grass. We have a ton of home games. And then I think the game in Mexico City is on natural grass. I don't know about the Raiders game or the Rams game, but in general, there's a lot more games. So once we get through here, man, I'm going to be seriously happy that we don't have to play on artificial turf that much anymore. The NFL needs to look into this, and the owners make enough billions and billions of dollars as it is. So I think it should be a mandatory thing when they talk about, player safety. And, I think a mandatory thing should be like, you're making all this huge profit, put it back into the player safety, do the natural grass.
Yeah. And crazy Jews, the same thing, seriously now, Ebu Common Banks. Yeah. And this is the thing that a lot of people do not understand. Okay. First, let's talk about the artificial turf. If that's the most realistic outdoor grass, that's a turf field. I did not know that. That is the most realistic. Okay. Like we can tell what, turf is. Like if you're a college football fan like I am, the historical Boise State, they're not as big like the big schools in college football. But there's no such thing as bluegrass. That is turf. You could tell that is turf. It looks very like metallic. It looks like very like one of those skate rings. That's how bad that is. You could tell that is turf. Okay. And then you look at the Panthers, which is very realistic. They're actually making very realistic grass turf now. There's a thing called field turf, which is basically a plant that grows on top of a synthetic dirt, and it keeps the flow of grass from growing, much slower. So it's basically it's an artificial. It's not turf, but it's the closest thing to realistic grass. And I think that's what they were using. That so many teams are now using field turf to control the growth of that. And the Niners have to rip the entire thing off, put some real grass up there. And the NFL has really made it clear that they're going to look into it. Now, what does that mean? They're going to say, all right, we're going to look into it and we ain't going to do nothing. That's basically the reality. But yeah, Aziz, I don't know how many more weeks is gone. I know Ty Davis Price has returned. Don't know how effective he's going to be. I don't know when Trent Williams comes back, how well he's going to be. Because when you come back immediately after when you're cleared, it's just funny. It's just funny that, these guys are coming back. We're going to go back to normal. No, it doesn't go that way. At the end of the day, when it comes to these injuries, it was reported to me early this week, that Kyle's only time that they ranked at the bottom tier of 15 was 2017. Since then, they've been up in the top 10 every year. Even the Super Bowl year, we've been up there with the most injuries for whatever the year. And I think it's Kyle's way. I think it's the trainings. And it's just too bad that our owner is very, very laid back and puts too much power on the head coach. And I think whatever happens this year, the owner has to address what is the direction, because I don't know, because like this has to stop, because the the least injured team in the NFL. This is gonna be funny. The Minnesota Vikings. They play on turf. They're the least injured team. Why is that? Well, I found out last year. One of our former trainers went to Minnesota. They become one of the least injured team. They play in turf. What's going on? So I'm done with my rant. I don't know if you have anything else you want to say.
I agree with most of what you say, and like some of it, I mean, the turf is obviously really bad, and some of it, is definitely because of the turf, and some of it's, just kind of bad luck. I think with Trent Williams, because against the Broncos, I think it was that stupid play that led to the safety, and it seemed like a defender just kind of got by his ankle or something like that. But in general, it's just yeah, if it's bad luck, or I mean, I feel like a lot of fans say this. Oh, we get all these injuries, we got to get a new training staff, and it's like, man, yeah, I guess we got to do something, because if we're always in the bottom, like we always have the most injuries at key positions too. So it's if they can figure it out, then that'd be nice. But we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shout out to Daniel Berry for tuning in, the Rams fan. Fia Lua says, not enough time to get the player's body. Hold on. Not enough time to get the players' bodies getting used to the running and hitting. Facts. 100% facts. All right. So we got the New York Giants fan in the building. Anything you want to say about our New York Giants fan, about how his team is doing? What are your thoughts about their season so far?
Really good. I think they're playing really well. And speaking of injuries, they have a lot of guys who've been out, especially at wide receiver, I want to say. But they obviously got a big win in London against the Packers. And I know for me, personally, I didn't give them much of a chance to win that game, but they're playing a lot better. And I think this really speaks to like when you have a good coach, because last year it was like Joe Judge, but now they got Brian Daboll, and they got some good, they do have some good players in there. I like their draft a lot. But hey, good for the Giants. That's a tough division. Who would have thought that? But, it's a very tough division, the NFC East. And so it's going to be a battle. And, I think as the season goes on, they might wind down a little bit, but they could still very well be in with a shout for the wild card spot.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to Carcast. You know Carcast, right, Shifty?
Yeah, I've been on a show with him once before.
Yeah. What do you think about Carcast? What do you think about his podcast?
I like it, man. Definitely, he's really knowledgeable, and especially at that age to set up a channel and do a podcast. That's really impressive. And all I can say is just to keep watching all the games, keep working, keep doing your thing on it, and try and learn as much as possible about the game, so that way when people tune in to watch you, that maybe they're going to learn something new, or they'll get a different perspective.
Yeah. Mr. YTC, the Giants fan, said, lucky for us, we're getting Leonard Williams back, Azeez Ojulari, not our Azeez, back on Sunday to help contain Lamar Jackson. And again, this is why the NFL is different year by year. It's very different year by year, because whatever happened the year before is different, because teams change, new systems change, everything changes. So when the season started, like my gut told me, and my gut is never wrong, I felt that the Commanders were being overhyped by the media. So I felt that they were going to be last place. Everyone laughed at me. I said the Cowboys, and I was wrong. The Cowboys, I think the Cowboys win to make me mad. because you know how much we don't like the Cowboys. I bet you the Cowboys are just winning to piss me off. We have a better record than you, 49ers fans. Oh man, the Philadelphia Eagles. I think everyone knew that they got better from the year before, but no one talked about the Giants. That's why I call them a dark horse team in that division. And Brian Dable, a lot of people who love the Giants were mocking me. Look what Dable did. Everywhere he's gone, he's been very successful. In Alabama, he was successful when he was in college. He spent time as one of their coaches in Carolina. He followed Doug McDermott, and he's very smart when it comes to his coaching. And yes, they're not going to be like win the Super Bowl this year, but the reality is that this guy is the right choice. And if anyone can fix the mess of the Giants, it's this guy. And yes, it won't be how, because, the New York market, they're very ruthless. But if Dayball can turn this team around, they found their coach for the next decade, in my opinion. All right. So that's what I wanted to say. Fia Lua says, man, I remember before Jimmy's surgery, I said, trade Jimmy for Barkley. And all I heard was Barkley is too injury prone. I think his leading NFL in rushing. True. Yeah, see. Crazy Juice says cowgirls are going to get eliminated. That's funny.
Yeah.
And speaking of this is something really funny. I was looking at the early standings, and if the season ended today, the Niners would host the Cowboys at Levi Stadium.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. YTC's talking about his rivals, the Commanders, all that stuff. Yeah. Cool stuff. All right, let's go back to 49ers topics. And so I want to ask you about this, Shifty. I've said it before, but with all the injuries that we're not hearing, like Aaron Banks dealing with some tendonitis and Achilles, not sure if he's going to be back. Trent Williams is going to be gone for a few more weeks. And I wanted to know if this is a concern for the 49ers. Am I overthinking it? And do we have enough depth at the offensive line? So I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me the offensive line isn't a huge concern. It's not as big a concern as what I thought it would be. Now, with that being said, if we suffer another injury, then we could be in a bit of trouble. So to me, Jalen Moore, I was very critical of him. I thought he was in preseason against the Texans. I thought he was awful. In the game against the Broncos, he came in for 4 snaps. He was so bad that they pulled him after 4 snaps. But he's responded really well, in my opinion. I think he's come back really strong, and he's played pretty decent football. I mean, considering he was our 3rd left tackle. But I think the rest of the offensive line has been like okay at best. I mean, okay, maybe even a little bit better. Banks, I think, has been a good surprise. Brendel's been fine. Burford, ups and downs, but I think he's a lot more ups now. And McGlinchey is holding his own. So, we still have Brunskill waiting in the wings, but if we keep getting these injuries and they keep mounting up, then of course it's going to be really bad news. But hopefully, Trent Williams will be back after the bye week. So that would be week 10. So that would mean he would still have another 4 or 5 weeks or so to get healthy and get ready to play, which I think he'll be fine. But yeah, when we get Trent Williams back, as long as we don't have any other big injuries, and I think we're in pretty decent shape. But yeah, it's just a shame, to have. And I'm assuming I'm going to go with the assumption that that Banks will be playing on Sunday. I don't think he's due to miss any game time. So with that being said, I think the offensive line has been fine. Not elite by any means, but I think it's been fine and should get better once Trent Williams is back. But we'll have to wait and see. Knowing our luck, we'll see what happens.
So here we go. YTC says, so how do you feel about Debo lining up versus AJ Terrell Sunday? What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I mean, AJ Terrell is a very, very solid cornerback. And you have to keep in mind, too, that the Falcons, they don't have the pass rush that we have. So if you're playing well at cornerback with Atlanta, that means you're having to cover a lot longer because the pass rush there typically is not getting home. So I think AJ Terrell, very good cornerback, but we kind of know at this point how Kyle runs his offense. He's not very stubborn in the fact he's stubborn, but he's not stubborn in the fact that he'll always have players lined up in the exact same position. He'll move guys around, try and find good matchups. So of course, there's going to be, many plays, I'm sure, on Sunday where it is Debo lined up against AJ Terrell, but there'll be plays where it's Ayuk. There'll be plays where it's Jawan Jennings, Ray McLeod, a bunch of other guys. So I think we'll try and probably not target him that much, but great, interesting matchup to look at, and one that I always like to find those matchups that'll be, something to keep an eye on throughout the game.
Yeah. Theo Lewis says Samuel will get over 150 yards receiving and 50 rushing. Your thoughts?
Ooh, I don't know about that. I mean, maybe you can't count out Debo because there's definitely. I mean, we saw it against the Rams where he had that amazing touchdown run. We'll see. I mean, I think all in all, the passing offense in particular has taken a lot longer to get going, simply because not to bring it all up, but we were planning for Trey Lance to be there, and then we had to revert back to a different offense with Jimmy. So, but you never know with Debo because we've seen it time and time again where quick pass and he breaks a couple of tackles and bam, he's gone for like 80 yards. So we'll see what happens. But hopefully, I'd take that game any Sunday.
Yeah, and like my opinion, when it comes to Debo Samuel lining up with AJ Terrell. He was a great prospect out of college. I forgot what college he went to. All right. Anyway, but yeah, he was a good prospect. He's different than because there's another player that the names are almost similar with the Buffalo Bills, but that's a very different player. So I want to see that matchup. It's like Debo's a really really good good player in his own right. AJ Terrell. I think that's how, yeah. Really, really good player to, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. All right. Speaking of the offensive line, and this is my thoughts right here. So I'm looking at the offensive line. Trent Williams is going to be out for the game. Basically, I don't know what's wrong with Colton McKivitz, but Jalen Moore will be lining up at the left tackle. Aaron Banks is questionable as of this moment, so we'll find out tomorrow what's going to happen to him. Okay, so I don't know who's going to sub in for him at that position if he won't be able to play. But Brunskill is active, so I won't be surprised if they move Jalen Moore to a guard and they put Brunskill at the tackle because he's played some left tackle. I look at Brendel, In the last couple of weeks, he's starting to get a good feeling on the center position, but I still worry about him. Mike McGlinchey's a good run blocker, but then you have Spencer Burford. So I got to be honest, I worry about this offensive line. I'm not trying to say that the offensive line is horrible, but at the end of the day, you have to be a little bit of concern because what if Aaron Banks doesn't play? What do you do? How do you shuffle that up? Because when you look at their backups, right here, I'm looking at it. They have Blake Hance. They have Nick Zach Chill.
Zakel, I think.
Yeah, that's a difficult name to pronounce. So Brunskill will be so basically if we're only going to have two backups. So we're going to be down with 5 offensive line and 2 backups who are very inexperienced. That is very, very worrisome. We have to be worried. Like, I don't know why we did not pick up an offensive line player, this week. Because I don't know what Kyle sees, what he sees, about this offensive line. But he let Tomlinson go. So I'm a little bit confused.
Well, the interesting thing too is that through the week we actually did work out a couple of players, and we signed. There was a kicker that we signed. There was a defensive tackle that we signed, but we did work out some offensive linemen, and we didn't sign them. So to me, what that kind of says is that maybe Banks is leaning more towards that he will play. Because if Banks does play, and I really hope he does, because let's not forget that the Falcons have a really good defensive tackle in Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett, very famously last Sunday, was the guy who sacked Tom Brady that had the awful call for roughing the passer. But he's a very good defensive tackle. So I'm really hoping that Banks, Brendel, and Burford will all be there because they have experience playing against a damn good defensive tackle, playing against Aaron Donald a couple weeks ago. So, but to me, the fact that we didn't sign an offensive lineman kind of maybe hints towards Banks playing, but then maybe we call up, one of the preseason guys who everyone liked, Jason Poe. Maybe he gets called up from the practice squad. So we'll see about that. But I do hope that Banks plays, not only because I think he's been playing well, but it's just so important for these guys to have that consistency playing beside each other, to get those reps together, those game time reps. So, fingers crossed he can go. And then Brunskill's been rotating in and out a little bit, and I think that's an interesting thing to do. But I do like Brunskill. I think Brunskill has got a lot of value because he can play so many positions.
Yeah, and I keep forgetting about Jason Poe. That he's on the practice squad, but I don't know why they have not. Well, probably tomorrow. Again, the players who are going to be out for the game, they're probably going to bring up Poe. But if I'm the Niners, I'll bring Poe up immediately because again, you're going to need some players, some extra players, and that's why teams always have 9 offensive linemen. Things like that. 1 extra tackle, 1 extra guard, 1 extra center, and then an offensive line player that can, be a rotating guy who can play multiple positions. That's why they have 4 players there. So we'll see what the Niners do tomorrow as we enter the game on Sunday. And now, speaking of the game on Sunday, the 49ers versus the Falcons game preview. So I want to get your previews. What do you want to see? What's some players to watch? What are some things that are, the biggest storylines entering this game?
Yeah, a couple of things that really stand out to me. Number one, I want to see the special teams clean up big time. No field goal blocks, good coverage. Maybe a nice return would go a long way. That would be really helpful. Number 2, Jimmy Garoppolo, no turnovers the last 2 games. Can he go a 3rd straight game without turning the ball over? That would be huge for the 49ers entering some big matchups in the next couple of weeks after this Sunday. Defensively, because to me, I think I read earlier that there's a chance that Nick Bosa plays. My guess is that they will hold him out of this game, so that way he is for sure ready to go against Kansas City next week. So how do the guys step up in his absence? When you talk about Ebukam and Drake Jackson and Kamoko Toure and Amenahu, can they play a full 60 minutes doing a really good job? Hopefully they will. Can the defense also, how does the defense respond without Emmanuel Mosley? Sounds like it's probably going to be Ambry Thomas who goes and starts against the Falcons, with Verrett maybe getting some play time here and there, but I think it's going to be Ambry Thomas who probably sees most of the action, and hopefully he can hold up. His career, it's very young career, only a 2nd year, but it's been up and down. He's had some really bad games, also had some really good games. So hopefully we get a good performance out of him. And I think if we can keep doing our thing, keep limiting offenses, that, I think we should be able to come away with a win. But the Falcons are not to be overlooked by any means. I think the Falcons do have some good players. Besides for all his fumbling, Mariota's been okay. But their run game is the thing that concerns me. And that also ties into Mariota as well, because crazier, and believe this or not, the Falcons on the season, in terms of per game yardage, their running and their passing is about the same in terms of yards per game, which is crazy in today's NFL. So they're running the ball a lot, running it pretty well, but no Cordarrelle Patterson. But I think ultimately, if the Niners limit, I think that the way the Niners would lose this game is if we beat ourselves. And I think we just have to go out there, similar to the Panthers game, play solid defense, don't turn the ball over on offense. I'm looking at you, George Kittle. and then special teams, just play a clean game. Special teams. I think that if our special teams played a solid game, like if that field goal didn't get blocked, if those 2 kick returns, if we just held them to like the 25-yard line, we probably would have even stomped the Panthers way more. So, but I do think the Niners should come away with a win here.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I got some questions I want to get out the way. All right, so YTC says an interesting matchup also will be the interior of the Niners versus Grady Jarrett. Your thoughts on Grady Jarrett?
Yeah, he's a really solid player and someone who fits. He's someone who I would love to have on the 49ers. Really disruptive, in the vein, like a similar guide to an Aaron Donald. Not no one's Aaron Donald, but I think Grady Jarrett's just a step behind him, and he kind of gets forgotten about because the last number of years the Falcons just haven't been very good. But the interior of the offensive line, it's going to have its work cut out for it, and that's why I hope the 3 guys who played together all season long are all out there.
Yeah. So let's see. All right, hold on. Back to the comments. Crazy Juice. All right, hold on. Well, computer's running a little bit slow right now. Gotta give me a better computer. Crazy Juice says, I want to see Drake Jackson play, and I think we're going to see a lot of Drake Jackson depending on what happens. Like Ebukam probably could come back, but if Nick Bosa has to, take a week off, will we see Drake Jackson? That's going to be a really good question. Charles Omena, who spoke to the media today, and he says that he's excited to play if he has to be the starter. So it's indicating that Omena, who is preparing himself to take one of the pass rushing spots. So that's what he said today. And the Falcons took a loss. Deion Jones getting traded to Cleveland. Cool. Also, I want to see Ufunga get another pick 6. Wouldn't that be fun, Shifty? Wouldn't that be fun?
It'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would have been fun. Shout out to Talanoa Ufunga. All right. And then let's get all these questions out the way. All right. Yeah, Grady, Deion Jones. All right. Now it's the former Giant. Lorenzo Carter will take his place. And then also next to Rashid Evans from Tennessee. All right. So let's talk about the game previews. And of course, when it comes to the 49ers, the offensive line is going to basically have the tempo on how they protect when they're throwing the football. When it comes to the run game, we just have so many good offensive weapons. That play where you had Charlie Warner, Kyle Juszczyk, and George Kittle lined up next to one another. They cut 3 big gaps, and what's his name? Jeff Wilson, boom, just got 15 yards. So the run game is no problem. It's going to be how they defend the passing game, how they rush their pass rush when Jimmy has to drop back and throw the football. So here's some stats that I saw that the Falcons have a 17th rank run defense. So they are at the middle of the pack, but they are one of the worst pass defense. They're 29th in the league. So the defense of Atlanta, they're still a work in progress. They do have Grady Jarrett. We talked about AJ Terrell. They got some players out there. As well. But one of the things that I worry about is their run game. Atlanta has the 3rd best run offense in the NFL, 165 rushing yards per game. They have rushed for over 800 yards. They are doing an outstanding job. But when it comes to their passing, their pass offense, they're one of the worst. So if we take away their run game, they're going to be one-dimensional. And the Niners should win this game if we take away, because their run game, and of course, I don't know what's going to happen with Javon Kinlaw. He is not practicing. Eric Armstead has already been announced that he won't play. So the run game is going to give the Falcons an opportunity to keep this game close. So that's one thing a little point of emphasis when it comes to how the Falcons can beat us. So that's just my thoughts about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, yeah, as you said, their run game's among the best in the league. And one thing that is going to help us out is their leading rusher on the year, Cordarrelle Patterson. He's on the injured reserve, so he's out for this game. So he's going to miss a few games. So that will help us. But yeah, we still have to go in there prepared for it's going to be a battle going in there. It's Atlanta's going to try and give us their best shot. So
Yeah. And one thing I will say, even though I did a little bit, we all know Mr. YTC is a Packers fan. He has told me that 100 million times. But anyway, I I wanted to say that just to be a little bit funny. Anyway, all right, let's move on and talk about keys to victories. What the Niners have to do to get the victory this Sunday. So I'm going to start off with you, Shifty. Let me know what the Niners have to do to win the game.
well, I think you actually you hit the nail on the head earlier at trying to make them one dimensional. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where I pointed out a little bit earlier too, where like they almost have as many rushing yards as passing yards on the season, which in this day and age in the NFL, that's essentially unheard of. But they're leading rushers out. But if we can force them to have to pass the football, then I think good things will happen with the 49ers. We know how good Mooney Ward has been, Hufanga, Tashawn Gibson. They're probably going to try and target Lenore, Ambry Thomas, but then don't be surprised if we, put a little help over on their side too with the safeties. But yeah, if we can limit their running game, then I think we have a really good shot to come away with a pretty convincing win. Now, I think if you're sorry, and I'm saying the Panthers, the Falcons. With the Falcons, I think their game plan is going to be, let's keep doing our thing, running the football. Let's control the clock. Let's force the Niners. Maybe they make some special teams mistakes. Maybe they turn the ball over, and then they come away with the win. So we just have to basically flip that and be like, no, you're not going to run the football. And that's going to be a big ask of Akeem Spence, Hassan Ridgeway right in the middle. Those guys are going to be Kevin Givens too, tasked with slowing down the run game and being those run stuffers. So if we can do that, I think that's going to be massive for our chances to come away again with a very, very solid win against the Falcons.
Yeah. Like, one of the things that when it comes to the 49ers, I think every week is going to be very different. Because last year, it was almost the same thing. I think for like 10 weeks in a row, the Niners basically last season, their formula was run the football. Our linebackers on the defense are very great extensions to our pass game and the run game. But this year is very different. And one thing that we are seeing is, as I've been saying, the offensive line. Our offensive line, who has their issues this year. And, I was worried. Like, we all knew Brendel, Burford, and Banks we're going to start off the year being very sluggish. As the year has gone on, they have done what they're able to do. I think by mid-season, so I think in the next 2 to 3 more weeks, we're finally going to see Burford with all the reps. Banks, hopefully he comes back. And at the end of the day, Brendel has been able to finally reduce, his mistakes of botching the snap, not giving the ball, all that stuff. So the offensive line is going to be a big factor. There's the word, the big factor for us to win this game. We got to take away the run. And one of the things that we have to do is, like you talked about it, Hakeem Spence. I forgot about Hakeem Spence. I thought he was a guy who just came in for training camp. But you talk about Hassan Ridgeway, Kevin Givens. They have to step up in this game. 165 yards per game. They're doing better than us. They're doing way better than us. We're like 4 spots behind the Falcons. So the Falcons are running the football. And also their quarterback, he's going to give us a problem. I'm already calling it. We are bad against mobile quarterbacks. It's not just a Russell Wilson thing. We have trouble with Kyler Murray. We had trouble with in 2019 with Lamar Jackson. We always have problems with running quarterbacks. That's never going to change. I think Marcus Mariota is going to run the ball a lot. and it's going to basically give us big problems. It's going to also help them expand plays. I think this is going to be a very close game. I think the Niners are going to be put in check. Again, their defense is not one of the best defenses in the NFL, but I think they're going to put us in check. And I think that the offensive line has to do well. Basically, both our interiors, both our offensive line and our defensive line are going to be the biggest factor for us to get the victory. That's just my thoughts about that. Any other factors before we move on for the next topic?
You know what? We saw against the Rams that Debo had a nice breakout game, big yardage and everything, but I really do want to see whether it's Ayuk or Kittle. I want to see one of them just come out and have like 130 yards and just completely dominate. It's not really in our game plan. I mean, I think so many times we want to be the team who runs the ball well, and then we hit them on play action and things like that. But it'd be nice to see one of those guys just have a big time game and really remind people just how good they are.
Mm-hmm. True. All right, so I think let's take a few questions from the chat. So that's what we're going to do now. So hopefully we get some questions in. But one last thing before we move on and take some questions is that this is going to be a tough game. The Falcons, for whatever the reason, they have our numbers. It's a 50-50 game. I don't know who's going to win. The Niners are coming off a good victory. The Falcons should have won that game, but they ran out of timeouts. And the Patriots just had a 21, had 21-0 lead, and the Falcons did their best they could, but the Falcons are not at the level of Tampa Bay. Plus, it's also a divisional game. So Atlanta, they're playing at home, but they played, a divisional matchup, which is not that far from the state of Georgia. So for them, it was like, a home area for them. So we'll see how that happens on Sunday. We'll see what happens on Sunday. All right, let's go to the chat.
Yep.
All right. So David says it's Niners all damn day. I've been here just busy AF at work. Yep. David says what's up to his boy Crazy Juice, and Crazy Juice says what's up. Everyone's saying what's up to one another in the chat. Phil Lewis says checking the Niners stats. I thought Jackson have about 2 to 3 sacks. He has 0.
I thought he had 2 sacks on the year. I'm looking it up right now.
All right. While Shifty is checking out the stats, leave your questions and comments. And
yeah, so Drake Jackson has 2 sacks.
There we go. Most of
he's
that
actually sorry to cut you off, John, but he's actually tied for second most for rookie players with sacks. Now, number 1 is Aiden Hutchinson. Now, Aiden Hutchinson with the Lions, he had 3 sacks in like one half of football against the Commanders, but outside of that's done nothing. But Drake Jackson, I think, assuming that Bosa's out and maybe they limit Ebukam snaps a little bit too. I think Ebukam, he practiced today, so I think he'll go on Sunday, but maybe they limit him a little bit. But I really hope we see a lot of Drake Jackson because we saw in preseason, we've seen in some of the games so far, he's super athletic, can make the plays. So I want to see him, really be nice to see him to make a real impact on the game.
Yeah. And Drake Jackson, who has the most sacks out of all rookies, is not even the starter.
Doesn't play much.
Yeah, so he's not. But imagine if Drake Jackson was playing, how many sacks he would have. But at the end of the day, it's a testament that Chris Kasurek can take anybody and turn them into a high-quality, talented player. So if, again, I hope this doesn't happen. I hope D'Amico say, let me spend one more season with the Niners next year. But he's going to be one of the most sought out coaches. What he has been doing this year. So, but Chris Kasurek should be the guy they promote because he's done a good job since he's been here. Our defensive line has never been the issue. It's always been our secondary. When we were not doing so well. But anyway, So let's see if we get a few questions, even just one question before we end the show. So let's see if we have anything. So far, nothing yet. So let's see. Fia Lua just dropped this. Said sorry, Niners web zone had him at 0. Okay, web zone.
Yeah, I just checked ESPN.com and it has him at 2 sacks. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think Drake Jackson, this is an opportunity for him to really earn some playing time. If he can have a big game on Sunday, one thing too, from what I've been hearing, is that the Falcons offensive line has been playing pretty well. They do have some pretty solid offense. I think it's Jake Matthews is their left tackle. Caleb McGarry, I think, is their right tackle. Chris Lindstrom is a good interior offensive lineman. So the Falcons' offensive line is solid, and that's one of the reasons why they're able to run the ball so effectively, because the offensive line has been playing well. Not only that, I think that their coach, Arthur Smith, he's a decent coach. I'm not really too familiar with who's their coaching on the defensive side of the ball. And now that Deion Jones got traded, outside of Grady Jarrett and AJ Terrell, I'm not too familiar with a lot of their players on defense, but we have to respect them a lot. We have to respect them a lot going into this game, because, and it's something that I was saying, if we can come back 4-2, and then I think between the Chiefs and the Rams game, if we go 1-1 there, if we're 5-3, then we have the bye week. We have a lot of home games coming up, and we'll be getting Elijah Mitchell back, Trent Williams back, Jimmy Ward back. Then we really should be in line to do some big things.
All right, so Niner Gang Wolfcast says more than one turnover for the 49ers defense. What do you think?
I'm going to go with 2. I'm going to go with 1 fumble and 1 interception.
Mm-hmm. Fia Lua says, do you think we should sign Jimmy as a backup next season?
For me, I would say I doubt that's going to happen, because as we've seen so far, teams traded for Matt Ryan, they traded for Baker Mayfield, and they've done nothing. They're all flaming out big time, even Russell Wilson. So I think that after this year, Jimmy is going to get a decent sized contract from a team. Maybe it's a rebuilding team, or maybe it's a team like the Colts, who seemingly like to have those veteran quarterbacks there. But I don't think he'll be back. Because I think he'll just get bigger money elsewhere.
And of course, the contract, read it. And again, Jimmy's going to make $16 million when the season is over. Okay, so basically he gave up basically $8 million in base salary and gave up $11.5 million. So it saved the 49ers between $8 to $11.5 million. So it helped the 49ers. I think that's what the Niners should have done last year when they got Trey Lance. I think they should have restructured his contract, to make it more tradable and more easy. But, they did not think that, the Niners thought Jimmy was way better than his value was, and the Niners got it wrong. But that's all I want to say about that. And basically, there's no franchise tag. Jimmy is not back next year 100%. I've said in the past, a year ago, don't be surprised if Jimmy come back. I was right. I'm saying it right now, a year in advance. Jimmy will not be on this team, and I will be right again. But I just wanted to just show my track record that I've never been wrong. But anyway, Shifty, that's enough about Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, we've been on for an hour and 10 minutes. Shifty is always great. Time flies by when we do this show. But just like I said, Shifty, let the fans know one last time where they can find you, talk about your channel and your social media platforms.
All right, I am Shifty's 49ers Talk, much like John Jay from the San Francisco Bay Area. Been a Niner fan my entire life. For me, what I do is 49er content. So do game previews, break down the game after it's been done, talk about any big news that's happened. My favorite thing, though, and I encourage everyone to check it out, is to come to the live streams, because the live streams are always a lot of fun. Personally, it's my favorite thing to do, going play by play. I get pretty animated when, big plays happen, but check me out. So basically, Shifty's 49ers Talk If you type that into YouTube, it should pop up. I do also have a Twitter, which is Shifty 49ers Talk, and an Instagram, the same name. I'm not as active there, but feel free to drop a follow because I'll leave comments and stuff on there as well. But yeah, if you're a Niner fan, or even if you're just an NFL fan, do feel free to swing by. If you like what you see, like and subscribe.
All right, this is the last question we're going to take. So Phil Lewis says, let me rephrase. Do you think the Niners should sign Jimmy to a 2-year deal so we can trade him the next year? No.
It's
I've
not
said
going to
it.
happen.
Yeah, I know. And again, Don Yee put his language on the contract. No franchise tag, no, 1-year, deal. No. They want Jimmy out of San Francisco. And the only reason why they came back was because Jimmy wanted to be on a roster and he wanted to play, and the market crashed. And it's just very sad. So it's not going to happen 100%. I've said it, and I'm going to continue to say it. And I'm going to actually make a huge prediction, and I don't do really good predictions. I do feel that Jimmy, if Matthew Stafford is forced to retire, or if his arm is so bad he might have to take a year off, don't be surprised if he goes to the Rams. We'll see.
Hey, you never know.
Yeah. Or if Rodgers finally officially retires, Matt LaFleur runs the same offense. So those are two teams that I don't know what's the future of the quarterback, but they run the same offense. It will probably make sense. And maybe those teams will be even way better with Jimmy Garoppolo on it. I don't know. I'm just speaking just assumptions. But anyway, with that said, everybody, I'm John Jay. Shifty, thanks for tuning in as always. But with that said, this is the Candlestick Point Report. I'm John Jay. Shifty's right next to me. You have a good rest of your day. Let's go with the outro.